A federal appeals court in California is hearing a lawsuit filed by a group of activists which accuses Joe Biden and his administration of complicity in Israel's genocide in Gaza. Now, a panel of judges will hear arguments from Palestinian human rights groups who say Biden, along with his Secretaries of State and Defense, have failed to prevent the war and are providing support to Israel. This case was dismissed in January, but judges are now hearing an appeal against that earlier decision. Well, for more on all of this, Rob Reynolds joins us now from outside the court in San Francisco. Rob, can you just outline exactly what this case is actually all about and what the arguments are on both sides here?
Right. Well, this case goes back some months and was argued before a lower court in January. At that time, the plaintiffs, representing several human rights organizations and Palestinian legal organizations, argued that the United States and particularly President Biden, Secretary of State Blinken, Secretary of Defense Austin were in violation of various U.S. laws and treaties that prohibited the aiding and abetting genocide. The judge in that case heard the arguments and later issued a ruling saying that while he found that there was a factual basis for the claims of genocide and abetting genocide on the part of the United States government, he could not accept the case for jurisdictional reasons. That is, that there is a doctrine in American legal law saying that judges cannot countermand political decisions by the executive branch, and he said that this was considered a political decision. The plaintiffs then appealed that to the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals here in San Francisco, where they argued today that this was not, in fact, a political decision in the sense of whether a certain political or foreign policy matter was correct or incorrect or wise or unwise, but rather that this was a matter simply of law, that there is a law and our international treaties that the United States is pledged to adhere to, and that the courts do, in fact, have a role in enforcing the law. And so the judges did seem somewhat skeptical of this. One judge saying, well, you're asking us basically to interfere in every aspect of U.S. military operations overseas and what weapons can be used and sent to allies, etc. But the judges, having heard all of this, they've retired now. They'll probably issue a ruling, but probably the soonest they would be a week or two. I'd like to introduce now one of the people involved in this. This is Ahmed Abu Fool. Ahmed, please stand right here. Thank you very much. You represent Al-Haq, which is a Palestinian legal and human rights organization. If you could recap what the arguments are before the U.S. judiciary here on behalf of making a case that genocide is being committed in the U.S. is complicit.
No, absolutely. As you said, our case basically says that the Biden administration, specifically three defendants, President Biden, Secretary of State Blinken, and Secretary of Defense Austin, are complicit in this genocide and are failing their duty to prevent genocide from taking place. So there are two issues that are at stake here: U.S. complicity and its failure to prevent the genocide that is taking place. This is the appeal hearing. In the previous hearing, I think it was a historical moment. For the first time, we have the Palestinian people narrating their own struggle, drawing on their experiences of Nakba, on what their grandparents experienced in 1948, being ethnically cleansed from their ancestral land and their indigenous land. For the first time, also, we heard from the Palestinians themselves, not only about the Palestinians. So I think the importance of this case is that the Palestinians have been speaking directly to the American people through their democratic institutions, through their judiciary, narrating what they're going through. So for the first time, we hear from the Palestinians not only about them, which I think it's one of the many sins of U.S. Policy towards Palestine and Israel, that it always listens to what the Israelis are saying, and it's always a distorted version of reality. And now, yes.
Yes, excuse me for interrupting you, but I wanted to, before our time is up, you also have a close personal stake or connection or tragedy yourself involved in this, insofar as you have relatives in Gaza who have lost their lives. Can you tell us a little about that?
Yes, so I was born and raised in Gaza. I spent the first 25 years of my life in Gaza. Since the beginning of this genocide, I lost over 82 members of my family, and that also was part of my testimony. So I was involved in this case as a representative of Al-Haq, one of the organizations that took this place to court, but also as a legal expert and as an individual that suffered harm from this genocide. And I think the first hearing was very promising. The judge heard all the testimonies, allowed all the testimonies, but unfortunately ruled against, dismissed the case based on the political doctrine, which you just mentioned, that the judiciary cannot tell the executive branch how to decide on matters of foreign policy. While this is true, what we're saying here, that the judiciary should, we're not asking the judiciary to decide on a foreign policy matter, but on a legal matter. The U.S. administration is in violation of its international legal obligations under the Genocide Convention, but also in violations of U.S. law. So what's at stake now, and I think the importance of this case, is what does this system entail here in the U.S. We've always heard that the U.S. system and the U.S. democracy is built on this idea of checks and balances. If the judiciary cannot hold the executive branch accountable when they're violating international and U.S. law, then what does that mean for the whole system? So I think this is a challenge to American democracy.
Thank you very much. We'll have to leave it there. Ahmed Abu Fool from Al-Haq in the Palestinian Human Rights Organization. So, as I mentioned, the decision of this court, this appeals court, will probably not come immediately, but we will be monitoring the case as it proceeds through the U.S. system. An unprecedented, as Mr. Abu Fool said, an unprecedented opportunity for Palestinians to give their own testimony in the U.S. courts. Back to you.
Okay, thanks so much, Rob, for all of that. There's Rob Reynolds for us outside the court in San Francisco.
Make sure to subscribe to our channel to get the latest news from Al Jazeera.